Hey there, I'm Rob Gibbs, Senior Vice President of Sales and Account Management with TruHearing. Really excited to be back with you again today for Cooking with Your Senses with myself and Jen Carroll. Jen, thanks for joining us again.
Absolutely. I am super happy to be back cooking with you and to be showing off all of the really cool sounds in the kitchen.
For those of you who might not recognize Jen, she is a Top Chef star and award-winning chef. Has restaurants here in Philadelphia and also has her own culinary experience company called Carroll Couture Cuisine.
Good job.
All right.
I even trip up over saying that.
Let's get to it, Jen.
Awesome.
What are we making today?
Today we are going to be making steamed Littleneck clams with fresh corn and tomatoes, some herb oil, and a little bit of wine.
Excellent.
Super simple, really easy, and really delicious.
Only a little bit of wine?
Oh, you can have as much as you want. You want to get started?
I'm good for now. Let's get cooking though.
All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get our clams. These are Littleneck clams that are coming from New Jersey. They also are available in Virginia and everything, but washing, just like vegetables, you want to wash them because they have a lot of sand on them, and you want to submerge them into cold water.
Okay.
And when you're submerging them, a little trick that I do in the restaurant is I pour a little touch of vinegar into it because that will help push out that extra sand that's in the clam.
Okay.
And we just want to like move it around, and we're going to let them purge for about 10 minutes.
Is there anything we should be looking for in the clams, Jen? I haven't cooked with a lot of shellfish. I recently shucked my first oysters and survived that with all appendages still attached so far.
That's good.
But I know oysters you're supposed to look if they open or don't open. Anything similar with clams?
Yes. So these guys right here, we have cracked shells. So we want to get rid of them immediately. If you see any that are cracked, then you want to pull them out and throw them away.
Okay.
Don't eat them. Don't try and save them. You know, it is not worth it. I've
been on the wrong end of shellfish before, so
you don't want to do that.
Okay.
But if your clam or mussel is opened and you tap it and it doesn't pull back closed, that means it's dead.
Okay.
So you want it, the clams are alive, so sometimes when they're sitting, they'll open up a little bit. You'll see it looks like their tongue kind of coming out because it's searching for food, it's searching for oxygen.
Okay.
Then just give it a little tap and make sure it closes.
It closes.
Doesn't close, throw it away.
Good to know.
So all these guys look
Love the sound of those clams kind of clanking around in the bowl there. We are talking about how you use all your senses, especially sound in cooking.
So just sitting in the water for a minute, you can see it's like getting a little bit sandy and all of that.
Yep.
So while we're doing all the other prep, I'm going to set this aside and we're going to let these continue going just right till we're about to cook them. And when we take them out, again, we're going to pull them up. We're not going to pour the water back over top of them and get them all dirty again.
Got it.
Okay. So
similar to our beets.
Yes. All right, so we're going to move these over. Shucking corn.
Okay.
All right. So
I've shucked an ear before.
One of the things that I love doing, I loved getting this chore when I was a kid with my parents when it was summertime. They used to just buy bushels of them and be like, go outside and get shucking. I don't even think we even cooked all the corn. I think it was just something that they wanted us to do to get out of their hair.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love the sound that it makes too because it's like that rubbery, that thing. But when you're getting corn, you want to make sure that it is nice and tight and not like dried out or anything like that. So you can do it multiple ways. If it's like a long end, you can like crack off the end.
Okay.
This isn't as long, but like you don't have an end.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to crack that one off.
So like,
and
then I peel. But like
I can peel from this side?
You can peel from the top.
Okay. I do that trick where I do send my children out to shuck the corn.
Right. But like that squeaky
Love that
sound.
Yeah.
Like it just reminds me of summer whenever I hear it.
And Jen, I was going to ask you that question. I think you kind of already answered it. When you're looking at corn in this grocery store, is there anything, what do you look for? You said kind of that the husk is tight.
That the husk is tight. You can, you know, the grocers might get mad at you, but like you can take some of the husk and like pull it back to see what the corn kernels are looking like. Like for me, like this is all white, and this is a bicolor corn. So the white sweet corn, this will be a little bit sweeter, and the yellow and the white together, you'll have some sweetness and you'll have some starchiness. So we'll have like a little bit of variation in the flavor.
Okay.
So the white has more of a sugar content to it.
Good to know.
Okay, so we're gonna put that down. I'll get these out of here. All right, so we got our corn. I'm going to take the corn off of the cob, you know, like I have here already. But when I do that, the easiest thing for me to do, because this is pretty long, I like to cut it in half just for less chance of hurting myself. So I suggest that you do that at home too. So I'm going to take a little bit of the husk off so it's easier to cut, and I'm going to put it down so it's flat.
About how kind of deep are you going to cut that corn?
So you want to go, you don't want to go into the core, into the cob itself, but you want to try and get as close to the core as possible, because you want to get all of that like good juiciness. Otherwise, you're just going to be like cutting off the top, and you're not really going to have that nice like pop of flavor that you're looking for.
Got it.
One thing that I'm not doing here is you can put this on a sheet pan or into a pan, so when you're cutting, the corn doesn't go flying everywhere. You know, at the restaurant we do bushels at a time, and we do it in a lot more organized way than this, but yeah, okay. So another thing to do, which again I didn't do, is putting a towel down underneath, because it'll stop the corn from going all over. But hey, we're having fun here today.
Yep, that works. Jen, speaking of the restaurant, maybe talk to me a little bit about, I know we were talking earlier, Spice Finch here in Philadelphia, and some of the really unique, interesting things that you've done from a hearing impairment perspective there.
Sure. So one thing, I grew up being aware of hearing impairment because my mother has a pretty large hearing impairment, and my aunt and uncle are deaf, so I've grown up pretty hyper aware to it, and have realized, you know, going out to restaurants, seeing her growing up and not being able to hear always really bothered me. And you know, as I've gotten older, I've gotten to just really be disappointed in not being able to hear like the conversations across the table at the other side. So when we were designing the restaurant, I really put into thought sound and being able to have a conversation with others. So we picked our stereo system to be done in zones. So you can either turn up the volume or turn down the volume depending on, you know, what my guest is asking for. But we also put in a ton of soundproofing. You know, we have a lot of different textures to absorb sound, so it makes it a really nice environment where you can still feel like you're a part of it without it being quiet, and you hear the clacking of only like the forks and spoons, which is, you know, nice for some, but you kind of want to still feel in a lively restaurant. So by doing this, you know, it makes having a conversation with somebody so much more enjoyable. That was really, really important to me.
That's excellent. I know a lot of my friends and family members who have hearing loss struggle when they're out at a restaurant or in a theater, in a noisy environment in general, and avoid sometimes going into those circumstances for that reason. So really interesting to hear what you're doing at Spice Finch there, and hopefully others will follow suit.
I hope so. It's about hospitality, right?
Yep.
So that is one big thing. Okay, the corn cobs you should save and make corn stock out of. We'll get into that at another demo.
I've never made
Rob?
corn stock, yes, but I want to learn.
All right, for these, we're going to cut up some of these awesome heirloom tomatoes, and we're going to saute them off too.
Jen, when I think about the ingredients you're using, corn, tomatoes, we talked about the fact that the clams were from New Jersey. We're here in Philadelphia. A lot of hyper-local, and maybe that's a bad buzzword, but local ingredients
Yes.
in terms of kind of Jersey tomatoes, Jersey corn, etc.
Yeah, I try and, number one, I always try and support my farmer. Everybody should always do that. And try and be as sustainable as possible, but eating locally means also eating a lot healthier too, because it's not getting a lot of those preservatives put into them and worrying about like shelf life or anything like that.
Yeah. We talked in our other video a little bit about how we don't always think about where our food comes from, what we're eating, and how that ties back to healthcare, but it really is so important.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's enough. And Rob, for these clams, we're just going to be adding in some ginger and garlic. I make my own ginger and garlic oil that I have here. So it's easy, and you're not getting a big chunk of ginger or a big chunk of garlic. I know a lot of people don't like that, so it kind of melts away into the dish.
Excellent.
And then we have some herb oil and some white wine. I say the clams are looking good. We're gonna get started. Let's hit this
do it.
pan on. Okay. So the clams, I'm actually gonna put them into another pan bowl right now.
Okay.
Where it's getting warm. And we want like a low to medium heat right now. A little too high. Okay, so we want a low to medium heat because we want to get the ginger and garlic sweating out. I like a good amount of it too. And also the oil that I'm putting into it will also emulsify into the sauce with the clams.
Smells amazing and it sounds amazing. We're talking about, again, how you can fold all senses into cooking and how that's so important. Again, smell's a big part of that. Taste obviously is a big part of that, but sound too. Just hearing that oil kind of sizzle in the pan sounds amazing.
So now these tomatoes that I'm putting in now are going to break down a little bit as well and become part of the sauce. And these little baby cherry tomatoes and sunburst tomatoes we're going to add at the very end so they keep a little bit more of their texture. I'm going to jack that heat up now, and we're going to listen for that sizzle, and we're going to add the clams in.
Jen, thinking about texture, we've talked a lot about different senses, texture being obviously a big piece of that. How do you, as a chef, kind of think about or learn how to incorporate different textures and what's going to be pleasing to the palate versus not?
Number one, I don't want your mouth to be bored. So I don't want to give you all pureed food. I don't want to give you all baby food.
Yep.
And when I'm coming up with a dish, I always think about what is that like crunchier component. And crunchy component doesn't mean that it has to be a nut or bread or something along those lines. A crunchy component can mean a nice like crisp herb, right?
Sure.
It can mean a raw vegetable. It could mean some of the corn coming in at the end and giving that like extra pop. So you want to have different textural variations going on because otherwise it's boring and it kind of washes over you. So you want to get that excitement.
So when you're thinking about a recipe or how to kind of compose a dish, you're actively thinking about how do you incorporate all those different textures kind of ahead of time to keep the dish exciting, not just from a flavor, but from a texture perspective too.
Right. And when I'm doing that too, like sometimes I'll think about so many different ingredients and then I'll say, okay, yes, these are all the ingredients I want. And I'm like, okay, I need to edit down. There's a little too much going on. What can I pull off? what is too much, what is unnecessary on the dish. So I think that's a big mistake that a lot of cooks make, is not editing themselves and just trying to fix something by just adding more stuff in and adding spice in and herb in. And
So you don't just come up with the perfect recipe or the perfect dish right off the bat. You actually have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely not. I think you've seen that on Top Chef.
Never. Can't recall that.
Right, us trying to think of things off the cuff usually does not work out to our benefit. I have a little bit of preserved lemon here, and I have already taken, I soaked it already to pull most of the salt out of it and taking the pith out. And so with the preserved lemon, you want to use the outside rind of it. And I'm just going to do a nice little mince on this. But that preserved lemon is going to add such an intense lemon flavor to the mussels. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it.
For those viewing who might not be familiar with how you preserve a lemon and kind of what that tastes like, maybe could you talk a little bit about that, Jen?
Sure. So making preserved lemons or any fruit, citrus, is so easy. And the way I do mine, some people do it with salt and sugar. I do it with all salt.
Okay.
I take the lemon or lime or orange and I cut it in quarters or eighths depending on the size, and I put it into a bowl of all kosher salt, and I toss it and I completely coat the lemon, and then I pack it into like a mason jar or whatever I have at home that is going to be airtight.
Yeah.
And I pack it as tight as I possibly can with the lemon pieces and the salt.
Okay.
And so as it sits after, and I fill it all the way up to the top, as it sits, that salt starts to pull out all of the juice and the liquid and the oils from the lemons. And you'll have to add some more salt after a week, and I do a little flip. So I flip them over like every other week. In about 30 days, you'll get what I have here, and they last forever.
Okay.
Because they are preserved. As long as it is airtight and your citrus is completely covered with salt or the salt liquid, the salt water liquid.
This looks incredible.
So, I mean, you can do that,
I can.
right?
I think so. Anybody can do that. Yeah.
That was so easy. All right, I'm gonna do a little taste on this right now to see where we're at.
Jen, you mentioned the most recent season of Top Chef recently. What was one of, or maybe some of your favorite moments from the most recent season?
Even though it's the episode that I go home on, the episode that I was cooking with my sister, when my sister came to the kitchen, that was so super fun. We had such a good time, and lemon is one of my favorite things, and we juiced and zested so many lemons, and we just had a blast cooking together. So
that's awesome.
That for me was definitely one of the highlights.
Yeah, I think because cooking does involve all the senses, cooking with a friend, a family member, a loved one, it's just such a way to kind of bring people together.
Special.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, you hear that sizzling?
Sounds great.
So what's happening here too with all that sizzling, it's letting go of some of that moisture and intensifying flavor. So that's also why it's important to hear. Because if this was just sitting here, I would know there would be too much liquid in there, because the clams are going to expel liquid, which is going to add into the sauce too. So we don't want it to be too watery.
Got it. Yeah, hearing is so important. At TruHearing, we really focus on working with our health plan partners and their members to address hearing loss more quickly, because so many comorbidities like dementia, depression, fall risk can creep up when you don't treat your hearing loss. So it's an important part of cooking, it's an important part of healthcare, and I think it's really interesting how all those things tie together.
I agree.
Those clams look happy.
These look good. Okay.
Those look and sound like happy clams.
Happy as a clam, is that where it comes from, right?
I guess so.
Okay, so now we are going to add in a little bit of white wine. Now this is the white wine spritzer because if you don't have wine or you want to use this will give it a little bit of a lighter flavor. You can use beer, you can use water, you can use a corn stock, whatever you want.
Okay.
But I also just love the sound of a can opening.
That makes two of us. And white wine spritzer with clams sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Listen to that. I think the clams are even happier now.
Uh-huh.
Little white wine
so
bath will do
good.
that.
We're gonna put some of the corn in now, and then we're gonna put some of the corn in at the very end as well. Because we want this corn to really marry in with the stock, and then we want a nice, fresh, crispy pop of it at the end. I'm gonna push it down. We're gonna put a lid on it and let these steam open probably for about 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes clams don't want to open up and they take a little bit longer.
Hopefully ours aren't too stubborn today. And we'll know when they're done when they kind of open up to
when they open up.
Okay.
So you don't want them to be opened and sitting there for 10 minutes because then you'll have really nice rubbery clams.
I've been on the wrong end of that before, but I know I won't be today.
I'm gonna pick a little bit of cilantro to go on for garnish while they are cooking, because again, eating with our eyes is something that we want to do. And I'm gonna chop some up because we're gonna fold some of these herbs into the sauce at the very end as well.
Jen, if someone you're cooking for has a particular aversion to cilantro, are there other herbs you'd recommend as a replacement?
Sure. For this dish in particular, parsley would be great, basil would be delicious, oregano, thyme would all work really nicely in here. So it's really, cooking is so subjective. You can do whatever you want.
Yep.
You know, recipes, I always say, are guidelines, and sometimes the rules are meant to be broken.
Yep.
Do what you want. You're the one who's eating it, right?
Excellent.
And have fun. Don't be intimidated. That's what cooking should be about and what it is about to me. I made a little bit of a mess here today.
I would say this is nothing compared to what my kitchen looks like if I try to make something much more simple than this. So
I think we'll grab a couple of these little cherry baby tomatoes and cut them in a little bit of different ways so we can have a little bit of like visual difference.
Visual and texture? Yeah.
Right, so we were talking about the crispness in the pop, so you have the nice like freshness going in. And when I'm cooking any type of vegetable or something like that, and I'm cutting it down, I think about mouth size too, and it going into your mouth and being able to eat easily instead of it being way too large and having too big of a bite. Oh my gosh, that smells so good.
Smells amazing.
A nice like crusty bread would be great with this too.
Yes.
Garlic bread.
Speaking of local, also something that we have some really good purveyors for here in Philadelphia.
We are lucky. All right.
Check on our clams.
Check.
Wow.
Hear that bubbling away. Okay, see, we got like one guy starting to open, so we're almost there.
I am sorry that those of you watching this at home cannot smell and see, well, cannot smell what we have here. It smells amazing.
Now it's going to need a little bit more time. I want to check my seasoning. Now remember, when you're working with any shellfish or like clams, mussels, octopus, really anything, they have salt content in them, so you maybe want to reserve a little bit, go a little bit lighter on the salt, because you can always add more. It's really hard to take away.
Makes sense. And Jen, you mentioned earlier, you don't want to overcook or else you'll end up with kind of a rubbery clam. As some open and some aren't, Are we okay to kind of let them go, or do you start to take some out? How does that work?
We're okay, because
Okay.
right now they're all kind of going at the same pace. But say they were all opened and we had one or two that were just like starting to pop, then I would pull them all and I would open it on my own. Like
Gotcha.
this guy's starting to go, but he needs another minute or two. Because you can just
There's always one in every crowd.
right, like I'll show you here. Like this clam, for instance, if you have them all open and then you get this one in the bowl, just stick your
Okay.
spoon in.
Yep.
You can also take another clamshell and put
And
it
use
in
that.
too, because sometimes that's really thin, and just twist it. So you're making an
Super
automatic.
easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put that guy back in. Almost there. So now this is when I'm going to add in this corn at the very end. Get it cooking very slightly.
So this is the corn that's going to remain a little bit crispier, a little bit create that
more.
pop, that crunch.
Yep. Okay. Let's clean off my area.
I chose the right day to be hungry.
I'm gonna mix it up, and we're gonna be ready to plate. One thing, I want to add a little bit of fresh lemon juice in here.
That fresh citrus. It's going to add some brightness to the dish, I assume? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll like reawakening it.
And I saw, Jen, you kind of cut off the ends of the lemon and squeeze those to get the juice. Is that
Yep.
the right technique? Is that?
That's a quick kitchen technique that you don't get any seeds in, and you just get straight up juice.
I'm going to fold that into my margarita making prowess going forward. Good tip.
Right?
I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, you cut here, and you leave all the seeds inside. You still use this too.
That's great.
And even here.
Okay.
Right? So you saw what I got. Like
Yep.
it was a good.
It was a good amount of
piece,
juice. Yeah. I'm getting the same amount of juice and all the seeds too. No one wants a seedy margarita.
And I'm gonna throw in some herbs. All right, we are ready. We are ready to get plating. So we're just gonna scoop these out. Serving this with over linguine would be awesome, or even like a nice crusty bread
Yeah.
to soak up all of those juices.
Jen, it looks and smells incredible.
Thank you. All right, we'll pour a little bit more on top. You can never have enough.
No. Yeah, you're right. A nice crusty bread with that would be amazing.
Some fresh tomatoes to go on here because we're eating with our eyes as well. Some nice, beautiful cilantro. And of course, Rob, the lemon zest.
Gotta do the lemon zest. Beautiful. Jen, this looks, sounds, smells incredible. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Everybody, please check out Jen Carroll on Instagram. It's Chef Jen Carroll, 2 R's, 2 L's. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're gonna enjoy these clams and have a great day.
Thank you.